On a couple more people, and I know that George is setting up his PowerPoint, but we just want to welcome you all back, and those who were able to be with us last week. We are continuing the conversation and the teachings around the star teachings, and so we're going to hand this over to George once he has everything set up, and we'll get started.
Good to go. All right. Good morning, everyone. Before we start off, I just want to wish good morning, everyone. And I wonder if anyone that was on last week had kind of went up and took the opportunity to look at the stars. I know I did, and I was taking out the garbage. I noticed how bright the nêhiyaw constellation was, and it was really. And I was just wondering if anyone that took the session last week had the opportunity to go out and look at the stars. And we're going to be picking up with, I believe we were at the Pleiades or the Okeanis constellation. And I'll just skip through. And I think Okeanis is probably one of my favorite constellations. It is very profound and meaning to a lot of people, not only in North American and South American countries, but all around the Pacific Rim, including Maoris, New Zealand, into Tibet, Siberia, and some Polynesian countries, and Japan and India. The interesting thing about the Pleiades constellation is its point of origin for all of those countries and cultures around the world. I mean, around the Pacific Rim, sorry. And a lot of very similar teachings, not only within the North American tribes, but also with the Polynesian countries and around the Pacific Rim. And for us, Okeanis is the constellation is representing the 7 grandmothers. And if we're having trouble with the within our families or with maybe discipline, we could pray to one of those stars as representative of a spirit or a guardian angel, so to speak. And for the 7 stars, there's 7 different angels that watch over us. And we could pray to those for whenever we need help. So Star Woman, she first, and the Pleiades is right in the middle of that big picture there. You can see that little star shape. That's the Pleiades. Then on the left there, you can see where Wasaki Achak or Orion is pointing at the Pleiades constellation. Now for each one of the 7 stars, these teachings that go with it, again, it's like the 7 pipe laws or 7 grandmother teachings: truth, love, honesty, humility, courage, respect, and wisdom. So just like all the other constellations, when there's 7 stars, we usually bring up those 7 teachings, either grandfather teachings or grandmother, and in this case it would be grandmother. So Star Woman, or achak squirrel, she had looked at the earth just like a little hole is how she saw it. And she saw people, she saw the beauty of the land. And she told the creator that, I want to go down there. I want to visit. And then the creator said, if you go down there, you have to take these people gifts to help them. And some of those gifts are ceremony, language, many different teachings, like our 7 grandfather or grandmother teachings. Those are things that she brought us. And it was Koko Manassas lowered her through the Pleiades constellation down to Earth. And that's the same journey we all make as Native people, from our place in heaven to eventually our mother's womb. We travel that same route. So Star Woman came here, spent her time here, and eventually she had to go back. And that's the same journey we're on here. Eventually we have to return home and use what we know or learned on this plane in heaven. Now, this constellation is visible for all but 2 months of the year. In May and June, it's blocked by the sun, but it's visible for the 10 months of the year. And yeah, it's interesting when you start to do the work and the research how many times this crosses over into other cultures. And a lot of them, it's 7 brothers, 7 sisters. And it's really interesting that I just learned not too long ago about the connections to Tibet. And in Japan, they call it Subaru. You'll see it all the time on the side of their vehicles, on their logo. Okay, that switch. Okay, our next one now is going to be nêhiyaw, or the sturgeon. For those of us that live in Edmonton, we noticed a little town of nêhiyaw just north of Edmonton, and that's where she gets her name from, the sturgeon, the Cree word. And this one is, again, it's right in the center of the Milky Way, and it's another one of those big constellations. And if you look at the body there on the left-hand side, you'll see those 7 stars are highlighted in yellow. And those stars are representative of what the term 7 generations. You know, it's the connection are, when we talk about 7 generations, this is where that terminology comes from, the 7 generations, because if you look at the middle, in the middle of the body, that middle star represents us right now. And then if you go toward the head and the star that would be around where the eye is, that represents our great grandparents and that connection to heaven where they're at. And you go back to the tail fin, that star represents our great grandchildren. If you don't have them yet or they're on their way, that's what that represents. And we need to be mindful of not only we're following our ancestors, we're our ancestors for the ones that are yet to come. So each one of those stars would represent a different, I guess, level in our family tree. So the first one being the eye would be Nidanskutapan, our great grandparents. Then the second star would be Nokumak, Nimusumak, and the third star, Ninigikwak, our parents, and then us, Nianan, us in the middle. Maybe some of us are further ahead or some of us are younger. Just different stars, there's one that applies to all of us. And then the 5th star would be Nichwa Simsak, my children, Nusimak, my grandchildren, and our Tapanak, the ones that are yet to come. So we've got to think of the 3 generations ahead and the 3 generations behind. So the head in this instance is the ancestors in heaven, and then the tail is representing the ones yet to come, our great grandchildren. Now this constellation is Wapahan. I know I talked about it a little bit about it the other time, but I didn't highlight the stars. And this represents the eagle staff and the 7 teachings again, 7 teachings, 7 pipe laws. So you'll find it on the bottom of the bowl on the Big Dipper and extending down into Fool's the Wolves constellation. And it's visible 12 months of the year. And again, it has those ties and ceremony where it represents the eagle staff. So let's give you a little bit of time to look at the picture. And this is the picture we used in the first session where we were talking about all the different constellations and different stories. And for this picture, we're going to focus on in the left picture, that little lodge on the top left of the screen. which is the Matutsan or Corona Borealis constellation. And then at the bottom, where that star shape is, Matutsan acimowina or Pleiades. And now if we look on the heart of that, looks like that wolf drawing, there's a heart in the middle of that wolf. And that's achak, or the North Star, or the going home star. Now for this, if you've ever been to a sweat lodge, you'll see a sweat lodge set up like this, where the fire is where that star blanket design is. And then the altar, or where they put the smudge or the pipe, would be where the dog's or the wolf's heart is. And then the lodge itself would be a little further up to the left. Now in this story, there was this young boy, and achak is his name. And he is in a lot of different stories. You'll start to see the interconnectivity in all these stories when you start to hear them over and over. Like if you hear them once, it might sound interesting, but when you start to hear them over and over, you start to see the interconnectivity and how they're represented in ceremony. So yeah, these stars are all visible throughout the year except for the Pleiades. Once again, it's the sun is in its orbit in May and June, and we can't see it. But in this story, it's how the sweat lodge came to us. So there's this family, and it was a winter time, and the parents had looked and decided that they're running low on food. So the mother and father were going to leave to go hunting. So they took enough food to go for 10 days. And they left enough food for the children to last 10 days, the boy and the girl, Jagabis and his sister. So the parents had left, and 7 days had passed. 7 days had passed since they had gone hunting. And Jagabis just had a feeling something wasn't right. He just told his sister, I think something is wrong. I think our parents have found danger on their hunting trip. I'm going to go look for them, he told his sister. So Jagabis said, in the morning, I'll leave to go and follow our parents, try to find them. And he divided the food. He left more with his younger sister, and then he started walking. He walked for one complete day, sun up to sunset. And then on the third day, which would be the 10th day for his parents were gone, it was just around sunset. And he started to notice on the horizon, there was a fire, a faint glow of a fire. And he noticed there was two people sitting around that fire. So he kept walking and walking, and he got closer. And he noticed that it wasn't people sitting around this fire. It was a male and female stabewak, or Bigfoot. And he got up to there, and the larger male Bigfoot told him, you're welcome to sit by our fire and stay warm tonight. Join us and continue your trip in the morning. So Jagabis asked him, have you seen my parents? I'm looking for my parents. They came hunting this way 7 nights ago. So the male looked toward the female Bigfoot and said, no, we haven't seen nobody here. And we live in this area, and no one's passed through here for a long time. If they did pass through here, we would know. Again, Jagabis, he had that uneasy feeling again. So he rolled with his back to the fire, but he kept his eyes open. He was alert. He was leery of his company. So he had kept his eyes open, and later on in the night, he could hear that the Bigfoot, they were both asleep. He could hear them snoring. So he took his knife from his belt, and he took the lives of both of those Bigfoot. And as he went through their stuff, he found a lock of his mother's hair on the female Bigfoot. And then he knew his intuition was correct, that something bad had happened to his parents. So the sun came up the next day and he started to walk home, and a long journey. And on the fourth day, he could see the lodge of his family. His little sister was outside standing there scanning the horizon. And then she saw him and his shoulders just shrunk, and he was, how do I tell my sister what happened? So he kept walking, and he was so tired, he had to rest. And as he rested, he fell asleep, and he had a dream. And in this dream, his parents had come to him, and they showed him a ceremony. They showed him how to build a sweat lodge. They showed him how to heat the rocks and how to pour water on those rocks. They showed him songs to sing. If you want to hear from us again, you do this ceremony, and you'll be able to communicate with us. You'll be able to talk to us. So Achak just woke up from his dream, and he had set out to what he had to do. So he started building this lodge, and his sister asked him, what is he doing? He said, I need to build this lodge. Our parents are not coming back. So the girl started to cry, and he said, but I'm building this lodge, and we'll be able to communicate with our parents, we'll talk to them. So he built the sweat lodge, he made the fire, he put the rocks in the lodge, and then he told his sister, when I go in the lodge, you close the door, but you make sure no matter what happens or what you see or hear, you don't open that door until I tell you I'm ready. So she closed the door, and she could hear the sound of the water splashing on the rocks. And then her brother started to sing. So as he sang, she started to hear other voices. It was her mother's voice, her father's voice. So she opened the lodge and wanted to see too. So this went on to happen 4 times. Eventually, she started to join him in the sweat. But this is how the sweat lodge was given. One of the stories of how the sweat lodge came to our people was to be able to communicate and sing together. And moving on to the next story. Now this one is the prairie bison. And the Cree words there, it doesn't mean prairie bison. It's like a vast amount of bison, for as far as you can see. And this one is in the eastern area of Saskatchewan, the eastern Cree portion of the Saskatchewan Treaty 6, where the bison, you can see its hind leg. In the early spring in May and June, that hind leg looks like it's touching the earth or the horizon. And they say that means when the bison has returned to take care of the people and provide food and lodge and ceremony. So Niska, sorry, I jumped ahead. That buffalo is Perseus, the soldier in Roman mythology. So this next constellation is Niska, the goose. And if you see in the large picture, it would be 2 o'clock on the face of a clock. So it'd be on the upper right-hand portion there. And you can see the green stars highlighting each star of Niska. Now, over in Manitoba, there's a ceremony called the Goose Dance Ceremony. It's very similar to the Thunderbird Lodge or the Chicken Dance Ceremony of the Frog Lake area. And the goose has 2 positions throughout in the winter. It's facing, the head of the goose is facing south, so the migratory birds know to migrate south. And then in the spring, the head of the goose will be facing north, so all the birds will know to migrate back north. And if if you see the head, which would be in the upper right-hand portion there, the head of the goose, much like the sturgeon constellation or nêhiyaw, again, one eye is looking ahead for the ancestors, and the other is looking behind for the people yet to come. And we would be, again, in the middle of the Milky Way. Now, I know this was about the stars and the constellations, but we got to mention the lunar cycle. And if you're into hunting and picking berries or medicines, it's very important to know the lunar cycle. Now, the lunar cycle is the 28 days of moon phases, full moon, quarter moon, three-quarter moon, crescent moon, all those things. Because in May or late April, when the medicines are starting to get ready, I've been told that as the moon phases from each month over the summer, for every moon phase, 4 plants or 4 medicines are ready to be picked. So we need to follow that lunar calendar from April all the way into the fall. And that would coincide with our hunting season, fish spawning, migratory birds. And again, that interconnectivity we need to maintain and have that respect for, that natural law. Then if you're to focus on the 4 positions of the Big Dipper in the lower portion, where we are right now in the spring, in the winter, that winter position is for our ceremonies, our winter ceremonies, or a time of rest, much like the bear hibernating. So it's a time of rest and ceremony and getting ready for spring. Because in the spring, all of those prayers, you can see that the bowl is facing down on earth. So all those blessings that we asked for in the winter ceremonies are raining down on us, coming down. Now, if we move over to the summer where the bearer would be standing, we're working, we're hunting, we're gathering, because in the fall, we're getting ready and we're filling our bowl for winter. We're preparing for winter. And our storytelling again, to start that circle over again. Now, this story is about the moon and the sun, how the moon came to be. In the picture, you can see achak there. He's forming the moon. And, many years ago, this old man, he had this job, and his job was to tend the fire, which was the sun. Every day he would rise before the sun rose, and he would tell his children, I'm leaving now to go to work. And his work was to keep the fire lit in the sun. So he would leave and then he would come back after sunset. And his children were teenagers. And he would always tell them, one day I'm not going to be here, and it'll be your job to tend the fire and take over my role. The old man was getting tired, and one day he didn't wake up from his sleep. And the boy and the girl were starting to argue over who would do the work. The girl wanted to do it, and the boy said, well, I'm the man. I want to do it. And this quarreling had gone on from morning until noon. And achak had noticed that the moon had not risen, or the sun had not risen yet, sorry. So achak left Earth. He went up to the sun, and he found the 2 children there arguing. He said, why is the fire so low? You haven't lit the fire yet. He asked, where's the old man? Well, the old man didn't wake up. I'm sure he told one of you to take care of this fire. And the boy said, yes, he told me to do it. And the girl said, but I want to do it. So achak said, your name from now on is Bison. Your job is to light the fire every day for the sun. He gave that role to the boy. And you, he said, you'll be now known as Tipskaupi Sim, the moon, he told the woman. Your job equally is important because the moon will take care of the night and the sun will take care of the day. Both very important jobs. But to punish you for both putting the animals and all plant life and people life on earth in jeopardy for arguing, he said, you'll only be able to see each other once in a while, such as eclipses or from great distances. They could only visit now and then. So that's one of the stories of how we were given the moon and the sun. Again, back to the lunar cycle and the importance of the moon phases. This story again involves Chagapis. And Chagapis was that young boy in the story of the sweat lodge. It's very similar to a Disney story if you listen closely. So Chagapis was in this community, and it was a big community. And again, he had no parents, and by now he was alone. His sister was gone too now. So Chagapis, he didn't have no one to take care of him or hunt for him because he lost his dad, or no one to cook for him because he lost his mother. He had torn moccasins, always hungry, thirsty. So one of the things Chagapis did, he would do chores for the community, hauling wood, hauling water, cleaning up, doing all kinds of chores, and people would give him food or promise him food, promise him to take care of him. So Chagapis would do the work, and sometimes he wouldn't get what the people told him they'd give him. They wouldn't honor their side of the agreement. But Chagapis rose every day, hopeful today would be different. Hopeful that today I'll get paid. Today I will eat. You know, so he stayed in a little tattered teepee at the edge of the village. He came home one day after working all day, hauling wood for other people. But he forgot to haul wood for himself. So his fire was almost out and he was shivering. He was so tired. I don't want to go back out there. I'm so cold. So he sat closer to the ashes of his fire and pushed it close together. And the moon was out, like very much in this picture. The moon was out and bright. Chagapis looked up at the moon. I wish I didn't have to work so hard. I wish I never went hungry. I wish I didn't freeze at night. He just thought of those three things as he looked up at the moon. And he looked, as he sat down, he pushed the coals together on his fire. He could hear footsteps crunching on the snow coming up to his lodge, and they got closer and closer. And then this young boy poked his head into his lodge. Chagapis, my parents would like to see you. Have you eaten yet? I said, no, come with me then. So it was the head man of the village. It was his son that had gone to get Chagapis. They walked across back to the village to the home of the headman. Chagapis immediately felt the heat of the warmth of the lodge, and he could smell food. The old lady he looked over was cooking over the fire, and he started to warm up, started to get really hungry. And the old man called him, Chagapis, have you eaten? No, I haven't eaten yet. Would you like to eat with us? Oh, I'd love to join you. I'd love to eat with you. I haven't eaten for a few days. Jagapis, take those water pails, go to the lake, because we need tea. We need water for our tea when we have supper. And when you come back with the water, you'll join us. We'll have soup and we'll drink some tea together. So Jagapis, who had a little more energy now because he knew he was going to eat. Nati took his pails and he walked to the lake. And it was cold, much like it is right now here in Edmonton. Cold. The moon was bright, just like it is in the picture, and you could see for a long ways. Jagapis, he just crunching, walking his way to the lake, and he looked up, again staring at the moon. I wish I didn't go hungry. I wish I didn't freeze that night. I wish I didn't have to work so hard. And he kept walking. He got to the trees just before the lake. Astam no sim. Jagapis stopped talking. Stopped walking. Astam no sim. So he started to look around. Who's out here? He looked around, didn't see anybody. Stood there, he waited, nothing. So again, he just picked up his pail, started walking to the lake again. As he got to the shore of the lake, he noticed there was someone standing out on the lake. Maybe they're getting water too, he said. So he kept walking and walking. Again, he looked at the moon, so bright. I wish I didn't go hungry. I wish I didn't freeze at night. I wish I didn't have to work so hard. So he kept walking and walking. And as he got closer, this lady he didn't recognize. And he knew everyone in the village. He knew everyone because he worked for everyone. At one time or another, he had worked for everyone. This lady with long silver hair that almost touched the snow. He started to approach slowly. Astam no sim. Oh, his eyes went big. It was the same voice he heard back when in the trees. Achagapis tikia. Are you Achagapis? Oh, she even knows my name, he's thinking. Yes, I am. Do you work hard? Yes, I do. And he's just wondering, who's this old lady that knows stuff about me? Do you freeze at night? Yes, many nights I freeze. Do you go hungry? Oh, many days I don't eat. Jagapis is just wondering, who's this lady? She knows his name. She knows these wishes he had. She told Jagapis, what if I told you, if you come live with me, you wouldn't have to work hard. You wouldn't have to work anymore. You'd never be hungry, and you'd never freeze at night. Oh, his eyes, he got excited, but he also a little bit of caution because every time someone asked him to work, sometimes he didn't get paid. So he's a little apprehensive. If I go live with you, I won't go hungry. No, I'll cook for you, this old lady said. He's still circling about her. If I go live with you, I won't have to haul wood or water? No, I'll do all the work. I'll take care of you, my child. It's sounding pretty good to this boy. So if I go home with you, I won't freeze at night? No, I'll tend the fire and take care of you. You'll never freeze at night. You'll never go to bed hungry. And you'll never have to work because I'll take care of you, Nosim, my grandchild. Oh, he looked at her. And all I have to do is go home with you? Yes. Just agree to come home with me and I'll take care of you. Chochagapis looked back at his village, looked at the old lady. Again, he looked back at the village, wondering what is there to miss. Looks back at the old lady and nods. Yes, I'll go home with you. Excellent. So off they went. Meanwhile, back at the community, the family's waiting for him to return. Son, look out the door and see if you can see Chagap is coming with our water. So the boy looks. I don't see him, father. Oh, maybe he's off doing something for some other family too and forgot. Let's eat before it cools off, the old man said. So the family ate. The next day, they woke up, went about their business. 2 days had passed. Then the old man said, go get Chagapis, my boy. We need some wood. The boy walked across the village and Chagapis's teepee. No fire. It was no fire in there, no sign of Chagapis. As he walked back to the other side of the village, have you seen Chagapis? He started to ask other families. No, nobody had seen him for 2 days now. And now, meanwhile, the children in the village are starting to haul wood, haul water, and clean up. All the things Chagapis would be doing for the community if he was there. So the boy got back to his father and said, no sign of Chagapis. Okay, well, you go get the water. So the boy went out to get the water and he'd seen all these other kids that would be playing if Chagapis was there. So the third day they woke up, everyone in the community is starting to notice that Chagapis isn't there. We need to look for him, the headman said. Gathered the community. They separated into groups. So many went to the water. So many went to the wood gathering areas, and others went to every lodge and every other place they could think of. Sun up to sundown, they searched. Nothing, no sign of Chagapis. So they returned. We'll look again in the morning, the old man said. So the old man went to bed after he ate and he was tired. So he fell asleep right away. And in his dream, he had this dream of this young boy. This little young boy looked familiar, but he was clean, well dressed, and happy. Old man, you're looking for me. It was Chagapis. He couldn't recognize him. All cleaned up, new clothes, braided hair. Yes, we're looking for you. You don't need to look for me anymore, for I am okay. I am with my grandmother. Will we ever see you again? The old man asked. Yes, you'll see me again. You will see me again. Once in a while, I'll say hello. I'm with my grandmother, Moon. She takes care of me. She cooks for me. She makes me clothes. She makes the fire at night. But I need to tell you something, old man. Yes, Chagapis, what is it? When you wake up in the morning, you need to tell the people a message. I'm not coming back. The children are to work, cook, clean, haul wood and water, and learn to hunt. And the parents need to make them do these things. I was raised without parents, so I had to learn how to do these things myself. If the children never learn how to do these things, they'll never survive. I will tell the people, the old man said. But when do we see you? You look up, see that full moon, that's where I will be. If you can look, you can see Chagapis in the full moon. On the next picture, I'll show you. So this is how the story ends, and if you can see closely, if you look closely, you can see Chagapis with his 2 pails of water. Now that's the end of the session here we have for the stars and the stories. I just want to remind everyone that as large as the Cree Nation is, there is different variations of these stories. Some are very similar and some have different characters, and there's no right or wrong version because the Cree, we go from Alberta to Quebec and many places in between. So there's different variations of these stories, and it's not, some are always different. Even within our ceremonies, there's slight differences within our ceremonies, and we need to be mindful and respect that. And these are just some of the elders that have helped me learn these stories as I've started to learn. And for me, learning these stories began at a young age. And it was always interesting for me to listen to stories and to hear different teachings, because when we tell the stories, we hear teachings. Sometimes we hear different, male will hear different than female, or different teachings. It all depends on who's telling and how you're hearing it. But then I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us. Hopefully you look at the night sky different, because I know I enjoy going out at night, and there's many different things. And I want to say, I know the other night the northern lights were very bright. I saw it in pictures. I don't look at northern lights because I was raised not to, because in our language we say Chipayak Nimitowak, spirits that have gone ahead, our ancestors, they're dancing. And out of respect, I don't look at them, and you hear stuff like not to whistle at them, because I'm supposed to respect that. And I know in this day and age, it's hard to maintain our old ways, but that's one of the things I do. Is the only time I look at them is in pictures. I don't know if Terry has anything to add.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, George, for sharing your knowledge with us today. We are going to be coming back and doing another session in next week as well as the following week. I just want to see if there's any questions from anybody that is on right now for George. Aiden has a question. Okay, go ahead, Aiden. Hi, Caleb.
Okay. Aiden, they can hear you now.
Oh, why did they choose Earth, the creators?
Is that going back to the Pleiades story?
I think so. It was after you were talking about Okinanis.
Oh yeah.
That question came out of nowhere.
It was Star Woman had she's seen Earth, like for us and many different cultures, the Pleiades is seen as like a point of origin or a doorway between heaven and earth. And that's, if you think of it like the door, like a door at a hotel where it has that peephole, that's how Star Woman saw Earth. It just caught a glimpse of it. And she wanted to come here. And that's why she chose Earth, because it was so beautiful and all the animals and the people. So that's why she chose Earth.
Okay.
Hi, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Do we have any other questions? I also want to thank George. He actually was helping my daughter this weekend with her assignment via text. She's doing an assignment with her school around the constellations, and she had chosen to speak to, and I talked about this last week as well, but she needed to answer some additional questions that weren't, that she couldn't find. And so we appreciate that, George, for helping Ella, my kiddo. And so was there any other questions as we wrap up today? Caleb has a question.
Hi.
Yeah, he wanted to say thank you. I had more of a remark around the Kuwaitan achak and its connection to the heart of the wolf.
Yep.
Is well, of course there probably is, but I'm just wondering like what that connection is.
That is
Why?
just for the art. It just happened that the heart ended over the,
Hi, guys.
and for the Little Dipper, that is the going home star is part of the Little Dipper. It's the end of the handle, and it's the only star that doesn't move in the sky. And it's also known as achak, or the dog stars. And the wolf is the one that holds the leash that keeps all the other dogs together. So that's,
Mhm.
and the wolves are also responsible for maintaining the order within our ceremonies and our pipe laws. That's a job given to the wolves.
Wow, thank you. Hi.
Hi.
So as we wrap up, George, maybe do you want to just share with everybody kind of what you may be speaking to next week?
I don't have an idea.
It'll come. It'll come.
They'll come. Next week, maybe we can do something as on an extension of the plants and medicines or star blanket, because the star blanket has a lot of teachings around it, and a lot of people see it and don't know it as a pretty blanket or a nice gift, but they don't understand the attachment, and that's one of the gifts that Star Woman brought.
Right.
And maybe that's where we can start.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again for joining us. And thank you to everybody else who were able to join us today. This session is recorded, so we will be also posting this on our Facebook page. So thank you again, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Have a good day, and thank you for joining us.